base issue more than anything else, but how the hell would they recover this?
Yeah. I wish my Twitter account would disappear. That would solve some problems.
Yeah, that would solve everything. All right. Let me open up the notes. How's your week been? Good?
I don't know. it's like a short week. It should be. I don't know. It's just, it's weird.
Are you working tomorrow or no? Taking off?
Yeah. I mean, I work every day, really. I'll do some stuff.
All right. Hey, chat room. Go to therock.com.
Okay.
All right. Oh, God, my back. So I wanted to, we're live now, but we're not like live, but we're live.
I understand.
I want to talk about the Thurrott Premium article about Mac OS that you posted.
Mm-hmm.
I found it very.
Which one?
The one that you get your what is it? Get the photocopier ready or get the carbon copy.
Oh,
ready?
yeah.
Where is that? I can't find it on the site now. New start menu. It was just there this morning. Redmond start your photocopiers. That one. All right. All right, let me get this. All right. Hey, Bob, Carlos, Adam.
Carlos? Is that our Carlos?
I don't know. No, I don't know. I can't see by the avatar. I don't know if it's a different
Carlos. I've seen Carlos in a long time. If that's him, you know what you can do with yourself, buddy. And if it's not, I apologize.
Let me now. What am I doing here? What am I trying to find? Haven't watched What the Tech in a long time, says Adam. Well, you're here. We're watching. We're hanging out. We're going to start recording in a couple of minutes. Let me retweet on something that we're live because I lost that GFQ account. You know what's even funny? Like, it doesn't show up on my app. Like, it's gone.
Yeah, that's
like,
weird.
As if it's never existed.
Oh, boy. I got a 520.
What are you going to do? Just, 10 years of my life on there. All right. All right. Okay. I'm ready. How about you, Paul?
I am ready.
Okay. Let's do this, boys and girls. We'll begin in 3, a 2, and a 1. What the Tech is brought to you by Text Expander. Text Expander helps you communicate smarter. Visit textexpander.com/podcast for 20% off your first year. Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by Mr. Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
I was trying to come up with a name for you, but I thought just introduce him like normal today.
You know what? I had this. You ever listen to Dave Ramsey? Do you know who Dave Ramsey is?
Yes, of course.
So he's for people who don't know, he's a financial advisor, kind of like a Susie Orman type. I go on these little things where I just overindulge in one thing. Like I've been watching a lot of old NBA videos on YouTube, or I have an obsessive personality. So I've been watching a lot of Dave Ramsey, and I had a terrible epiphany while watching this guy that has nothing to do with his content, but you and I, we just fall into this. We don't ever talk. Like, it's not like you and I have come up with something. We're going to have this greeting that we use every time we do the show. It just kind of happens. And Dave Ramsey has this. He does something very similar. So when people call into his show, they don't always ask him, but if they ask him how he's doing, in return, because he'll usually say, "Hey, welcome to the show. How you doing today?" And they'll be like, "Oh, I'm doing great, thanks. How are you doing?" Dave Ramsey will say the same thing every single time. He says, "Better than I should be."
I like that answer.
He says it every time, and I got to
Yeah.
tell you, binge watching this guy, I find
You're
it a little
into it.
irritating.
Yeah, is it
I
really?
don't like it. Yeah.
So are you retiring the pretty good?
No, the truth is, I don't do it on purpose. Like I don't do it. I don't think about it. You know,
That's
it
a catchphrase,
it,
though.
It literally no, but it's. I guess it is, but I don't intend it to be. Like it just happens to me. It happens naturally. It's my response, and I guess again, not to read too much into it. I mean, I'm from Boston. I'm the kind of guy that I am. If you ever ask me how I'm doing, I can tell you. Like I will never say, "Oh, Andrew, I'm doing great. Everything's great."
Yeah.
Like I will only as good as I'll get it is pretty good. And that's what comes out. That's who I am.
I like that. It's a good
weird, right? I know,
good
but
representation of you.
But seeing someone else doing it, I find it a little irritating.
You know what mine has become over the last 4 months? Hanging in there. How you doing?
Yeah.
Hanging in there.
Yeah.
You know, that's become my thing. We have a lot to talk about. Last week, by the way, thank you to everybody, all the new viewers. It was a big week for us. Apparently, I didn't think that Apple, that podcast we did on Monday last week regarding WWDC would blow up, but it's become a really big thing. I covered a lot of places.
It seems like a million years ago, by the way.
I know. Well, that's the problem.
I will say, sorry to interrupt, but just so you know, one thing that's interesting. I don't remember what we talked about anymore. It was so long ago, and so much. You know, you kind of process all the information. I will say that whatever we discussed, however we did it, it was a real fog of war thing at that time, right? Like the event had just happened, so I think the two of us were in many ways still processing, what we heard and saw, and so now it's like 10 days later or whatever. We probably have, in some cases, different views on things.
Yeah, I
maybe I don't know.
Some stuff, yeah, and I kind of wanted to lead into this. By the way, guys, if you enjoy the show, I want to get it over with. I want to give the little plugs. Definitely check out therot.com, Therot Premium. The main topic that we're going to be talking about is based on an article that Paul wrote here. It says, Redmond, get your photocopiers. Start your photocopiers, please. Right. Paul wrote this on June 24th, which is last week. I'm excited. I want to talk about this because there's a lot to take from this. Last week, like Paul said, we discussed the event as it had just happened, like literally right after the event went on. And, we're always, one thing that we do a little bit differently is that we will make our comments about something that happens like breaking news, but we always say, let's reevaluate the following week. Right? A lot of excitement. You see something, it's new, it's different.
It's the 7 stages of grief.
I know, with technology.
Or reaction.
Yeah, talking about grief. Bye-bye Microsoft Store. We'll talk about that also. But I want to talk about this because last week was a big week. Okay. Obviously, Apple unveiled a whole bunch of stuff. But you wrote an article on Therot.com, premium article called Redmond, start your photocopiers, please. I want you to talk about this a little bit because a lot of people are impressed by it's small changes in Mac OS in Big Sur, but if you look at this, right, and I've been playing around with the beta, this is made for touchscreen.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think you might be right.
It's the beginning of touchscreen, and.
So Andrew, we gotta cover some ground here. There's a lot of stuff to think about. So let me jump outside of that article and outside of the reaction to what the Apple did with the Mac and everything, just for 1 second, because there's been a bunch of things that have happened since then that are related to this that I think are really interesting. So supporting what you just said, there is a rumor, and it's a rumor, but Apple is talking about doing a continuum type thing with the iPhone where. Not this year's iPhone, but maybe next year or the year after that, will come with Mac OS on it as well as iOS. The idea being that so you dock it, you get a screen, you get a keyboard, you get a mouse, and it becomes a Mac. And because the underlying hardware is the same, this makes sense. It can run both. You could dual boot or whatever you want to call that. It can run the iPhone apps that are on the device. You could have some Mac apps on there, of course. You have to, come on, admit it. This idea has always intrigued people, the one device thing. Apple is the company that could pull it off. Now, Apple moves at the speed they move, so this is something for 2027 maybe or something. But that's interesting. We also got the first benchmark results from the Mac, the prototype device they're giving out to developers for now. And this is the device that runs at, I think it's the A12Z, if I'm not mistaken, which is the same processor that's in the current iPad Pros. And that device performs as well in emulation as the fastest, Windows 10 PC running on ARM does in natively, meaning that the native performance of the Apple device is significantly better, and it's only a prototype. And this is not the type of chip they're going to put in Macs. This is the one from the iPad Pro. Like, they have special, even better chips for the Mac coming. So that's interesting. So just with that as a backdrop, and I should point out too, I mean, there are people listening to this show who care as much about this stuff as I do, but
of course,
we should pause and recognize for a moment that most people do not give a shit about any of this stuff, in the sense that I approach this from the perspective of a Windows user, as someone who prefers Windows to the Mac. And what I'm hoping to see, and this is the inspiration for the article that I wrote, is for Microsoft to do as well by Windows as I feel that Apple is doing by the Mac, and so
let me cut you in there, right? It's a very pretty OS, right? Like the small changes that they have done has, you could see that they're modernizing and they're on a trajectory of of implementing touch. Even just that launch menu that I guess on the side where you can see your notifications and everything. That is the big
control panel
difference
type
here.
thing.
That control panel thing is the one on the current version of Mac OS is made for it's very old school, small print.
Yeah,
this is straight out of iOS.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, to people who haven't actually used it or seen pictures of it, when you hear something like that, the initial knee-jerk reaction is usually going to be at least what I had, which was, this is the dumbification of the Mac. They're bringing it down to the level of iOS, and that's bad. But the truth is, it looks great, and it works well with a mouse. It's professional and attractive looking. It's modern, like you said. There is a consistency between Apple's mobile platforms and the Mac, which kind of didn't exist before. I mean, there were little places where it kind of did, but they've kind of blown the thing out. But the issue I have, again, from the perspective of a Windows user, is that what Microsoft hasn't done over the years is move the entire platform forward, either literally the platform, the fundamental technical part of it, or in this case, what we're really talking about is the user interface. So, Windows 7 or Windows Vista introduced like a glass UI. Windows 8 introduced a flat UI that was touch first and blah, blah, blah. Windows 10 is sort of a hybrid of the Windows 8 UI where the desktop kind of comes back to prominence as a start menu again. It works pretty well on different, types of PCs, whatever. But at every step along the way, they've left little vestigial parts of older version of Windows in there, icons and fonts and
why is that? Is that just under?
So, yeah, it's hard to summarize it really quickly. I think of it as no code left behind. Microsoft's central promise that it's made to developers, to users, especially business customers, is your old stuff is going to keep working. And, there's things like, so why does Microsoft still have the control panel when there's a new settings interface? The reason is that people rely on the control panel because there are developers who have extended it with their own control panels. And those things are out there in the world, and they see the data and they're like, look, there are millions of people using this stuff. We can't just say no to it. But, Apple does exactly the opposite. So, they're very aggressive at getting rid of old things. It's not, for example, like people who don't use the Mac may not understand this. When Apple introduces in the month of June a brand new UI for the Mac and then ships it in September or whenever they're going to do, so in 3 months' time, they're able to do this because they've been doing this for like a decade and a half, or actually 2 decades, right? So ever since Mac OS X came out, they have consistently moved all of the user experience forward. They didn't do it in dribs and drabs. They always go forward with all of it. So it's not like today they suddenly were like, man, we got 20 years of garbage in there. Let's clean it all up. And they did like a great job. No, they've been doing this all along.
Yeah.
It's what enables them to make this kind of a UX change. The problem for Microsoft is they've never done this. So every time there's a new UI, you can pick apart any little piece of it you want. You could do like anyone can do this. If you're using dark mode in Windows 10, bring up File Explorer. It's dark, but then go to the file. It's the properties window. It's like options, change folder, and search options. That window comes up and it's white because this thing is not. It's not consistent. They never finish the job is the way I describe it.
Here's how I see that, right? Do you think that approach has everything to do with the fact that operating systems now are constantly being changed every year? So the priority of getting everything done at the same time to kind of streamline the UI is not that much there because you have another opportunity in 6 months?
My opinion, and this is based on decades of experience with this company, is that it's about the company culture. Microsoft is a software engineering driven company, and the way you get rewarded, the way you move forward, the way you get a raise, the way you get a new job is you work on something new. You don't fix something old. They don't reward you for that. There's no point in doing. No one's going to allocate money for that or resources.
Yeah.
As long as it just works, they don't care. And look, there are a million stories you could tell. If you ever watched, what was that PBS series back in the 90s? The guy from InfoWorld did a great series about the computer industry, and he interviewed Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and whatever, all at the time. It was in the 90s. And Steve Jobs was still at Next. It was before he came back to Apple. He was still really bitter that Microsoft had kind of won personal
Nova.
computing.
You're talking about Nova.
No, it was a limited, it was like it had a name like Revenge of the Nerds or something. It was something like that. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it. It was Robert X. Cringely was the guy who did it. Anyway, the point is just that Steve Jobs at the time said, the problem with Microsoft is they don't have any class. They don't know how to design things. And Microsoft it's fair to say, I mean, Microsoft's an engineering driven culture, but even when there is good design or what they think is good design, they apply it haphazardly and they don't go all the way. And especially with something like Windows, where it's a legacy product, they talk about this thing called the Fluent Design System, which is their latest kind of design language. They love using these terms, but they apply it. It's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Like, in this release, we put a little bit of Fluent on this menu, and on this one, we put a little bit over here on this control and this navigation panel, whatever. But it just creates a haphazard thing. You can look this up. There's somewhere on the internet. There's a page that lists the 11 different menu styles that can be found in Windows 10 or whatever the number is. Like, you right click on the desktop and then you right click somewhere else, and it looks completely different. As different colors.
Example, right? Sound settings, right?
Yeah.
The sound settings. There's 3 different options.
Yeah.
Right. There's one in control panel, one on the menu.
Yep.
And there's another one within settings. Is that because they've combined so many of the? Okay, here's a better question.
I don't know what to tell you.
Is the problem Windows 8 still dealing with?
No,
that,
this has been a problem. It's predates Windows 8. It's when Windows Vista introduced the glass, there were still non-glass UIs that were from previous versions. There are still Windows Vista icons in Windows 10 today. It's just they never do the whole thing. You've tried the beta, like you said, on the Mac.
Yeah.
Like, you can look in the applications folder and look at all the app icons. They've done it all. There isn't like a weird little one application they didn't touch. Like, they fix all of it. And that's what's missing at Microsoft. That's the point of the article I wrote. It's like, and for people who don't remember the history of this, unfairly, and it was not true at the time, but back in the Windows Vista timeframe, before Vista came out, and Apple was probably working on Mac OS Tiger or whatever the release was, they put up at their developer shows, at the developer show that year, these big banners that said, "Redmond, start your photocopiers," meaning we're going to announce all these new features in Mac OS 10, and now Microsoft can rip them off for Windows Vista, as if the features that Microsoft announced actually first in Windows Vista that then did appear in the Mac OS were Apple's invention. Like, it was kind of a snarky and unfair, I thought, complaint. But, to flash forward now today, 15 years later, whatever it is. And Redmond, start your photocopiers, because This what we've learned over time is that Apple's approach, at least to this kind of thing, is correct. You know, Microsoft is so afraid of alienating even the smallest segment of its business customers, especially.
But they
They
did that.
won't
They
let
did
go
that.
of old tech. You know,
They did that with Windows 8, didn't they?
no, that stuff was all still in there. I mean, they temporarily got rid of the start menu and had a start screen. They temporarily got rid of the start button, and that stuff all came back in 8.1. But the underlying system was the same. Like there was a bunch of new stuff, but even that's like a good example of like they introduced this Metro UI in Windows 8, and it's immature. It's not very capable. It's only on the new stuff. It's you could pick any number of power options, event viewer, the device manager, all these legacy things, disk management, computer management, Windows Power so doesn't count, but task manager actually has been updated. But these things are all legacy UIs of different ages and of different types. So Brad said to me the other day, he was like, oh yeah, he's like, a lot of people complain because there's settings and control panel. And I'm like, that's only the tip of the settings iceberg. I mean, there's also Microsoft Management Console apps. I mean, there's all kinds of legacy ways to do things, and they just never bring it forward. They just let it sit there and rot. And you guys, touch it, fix it, make it consistent. Satya Nadella says he wants people to love Windows 10, but Windows 10 is full of advertising. It's full of crapware. It's full of data collection that you can't turn off, and it's full of legacy UI from the past and legacy technology. It's a freaking mess. So, that's me. So when I see the Mac and when I see what Apple did there, it's hard as a Windows user not to, jealous is not the right word.
So
but,
here's a question for you.
Be bothered by that.
I mean, it's going to sound like they've never attempted this before, but wouldn't the answer be, hey, you want the legacy product? Here's the enterprise version. You want the brand new one? Here you go.
Well, I mean, there's different levels of backward compatibility. I mean, it's not just the UI; it's the underlying tech as well. And Microsoft has, I mean, to be fair, I mean, they have tried in some ways to modernize Windows. These things have mostly failed, right? We've talked about all the stuff: Windows RT, Windows 10 on ARM, Windows S mode, blah blah blah, whatever. But they can't. Like they always take these baby steps forward, or they take steps in certain areas, but they leave other stuff. They just let it sit there. Things in Windows don't get touched for decades sometimes. I don't know. I as someone who cares deeply about this kind of thing, it's troubling to see how easily Apple can do this. And that's over and above, by the way, them also moving to a completely new computer platform, right? Which is an astonishing technical feat. Just making the UI more consistent and beautiful.
The UI, this version of the UI, which it's been a slow change, right? This version of the UI for Big Sur is probably the most complete when it comes to unifying iOS, iPad, the iOS interface essentially with the Mac OS. Something that they said they didn't want to do for a very, very long time. I just watched a video. There was I forget the YouTuber, but he did this great video explaining, pretty much showing like Apple's going back on everything that Steve Jobs had said about combining the UI. Craig Federici, Federici.
Yeah, something. Federici.
He had initially said they were not unifying the UI, but you look at the launcher, the Launchpad. You brought this up last week. I mean, there's a new Launchpad, but you look at Launchpad. Yeah. That's set up for touch. You look at their new control menu, right? What are they? I don't know what they're calling it. I forgot the name that they're calling that.
I don't know if it's called
launch menu, whatever they're calling it, right? Yeah. Those little widgets for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and AirDrop. That's meant to do this. I see that. I want to go like this.
Well, so here's the thing. I think you might be onto something, and this is why I mentioned the iPhone rumor, because, look, a lot of people have called on Apple to add touch to the Mac. Apple's always said they don't want to do that. You can be cynical and say, well, that means they are going to do it. But maybe this stuff will eventually run on iPads and iPhones, like the rumor suggests. And that's why it's like that, not just to be visually consistent. And I think it looks good. It's natural.
So is a rumor that it's going to be like I know you brought up Continuum. So is it going to be pick up where you left off? Is that going to be like you got to plug
No,
it into
I'm sorry,
something?
sorry. Yeah, sorry. There are two. When I said Continuum, I was referring to a Microsoft thing. So back when Windows Mobile was a thing, you could buy a dock. It was like a USB dock, and you could plug your Windows Mobile phone into it, and you would attach it to a big screen with an HDMI cable, and then you would have like a keyboard and a mouse. And it basically, you don't get the UI of the phone. You get a desktop like on normal Windows. And what you see in the start menu is what you see on the start screen on the phone. And you run the apps. And if they're universal apps, remember this was the dream, they would know they were running on a big screen and they would look more like a desktop app instead of looking like a phone app.
Yeah.
And, or if you're familiar with Samsung DeX, this is a similar scheme that Samsung made for its own Android phones. Same idea. You have a dock, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the rumor that Apple will do this. And by the way, now that they're all running the same chipset, apps will be 100% compatible. That could make some sense.
As an Apple, here's the thing though, right? Apple likes to sell hardware. It's the opposite approach of Microsoft. Microsoft hates selling hardware. Apple loves to sell hardware. I can't see Apple creating a device that's going to affect sales of multiple devices. So if you have an iPad, I don't see Apple telling you that you could run Mac OS on here. However, if you have an iPad Pro, and you have your I guess your keyboard and your mouse, right? Your trackpad, and you have a Mac, and it notices that you have a Mac also somewhere, I could see them doing some sort of continuum feature where now you have Mac OS running on this thing. They're not going to do it cut and dry. I know it doesn't matter in the long scheme of things, but
I was just gonna say there are multiple ways you could do it, and you got to remember that the hardware sale they're cutting out when they add this feature, if they ever do, to iPad or iPhone, is the Mac, and who cares? I mean, that's their smallest platform in many ways, right? So bringing professional capabilities to the iPad in particular, or to a docked iPhone, whatever it is, like however they do it, doesn't really matter, but is really very interesting because, one of the big knocks against the iPad Pro is like, this thing's not a real computer until you can develop software on it. Well, Xcode will run on it now, you will, or an Android Studio or whatever. I mean, you will be able to develop apps on it. That gets very interesting. Once you can develop apps for the platform you're using on the platform you're using, right?
Yeah.
That thing is now a first-class computing platform, and that's how you get there. So I could, I could see Apple wanting that. This is, by the way, also where they have the lock-in, and that's very powerful to Apple because their whole services model that they're building up, this new big business, is predicated on you subscribing to more and more things and paying them more on a regular basis, not buying one computer and holding on to it for 7 years, or buying one phone and holding on to it for 3 years or 5 years or whatever. So I think this is more about keeping people in that ecosystem, because the problem with the Mac is you can go to the web and run any software. You can find a web app that does as good as anything on the Mac. And so why bother with, Apple never gets a cut of that. And what they want is to keep people in their ecosystem. So in that sense, bringing the Mac forward, because you're always going to have those professional users that need it, but bringing that compatibility in the other direction, which is the one thing they're not talking about this year, of course, it's just starting. I think is the next logical step to the future. This is the post PC world they keep talking about. This is the reality of it. This is how it really happens.
Well, I mean, listen, in Apple's sake, right? There's so much strategy in their product development and the product release cycle because, like you said, being stuck in that ecosystem is the key to their success. You're stuck with the software. So your entry is obviously an iPhone at this point. Everybody's entry into this ecosystem is the iPhone. When I say everybody, I mean the majority. Let me just say that again. Is the iPhone. So you got the iPhone. Now you kind of justify maybe the year later you got an iPad. Right? Now you have the iPad. Now you're in that ecosystem. Yeah. You need a laptop. That's coming up. All your stuff is on iCloud. All your stuff is here. So now you buy a Mac. And the cycle continues. So now you're at the third year. You know what you do the following year after you buy the Mac? You upgrade your iPhone.
Okay, but I mean, I think what Apple has realized is that when they talk about the synthesis of hardware and software, the real, as good as Apple's margins are in hardware, and they are amazing and unfairly amazing. The real easy margins are on the software and services end, and you have a captive audience of a billion people plus now, whatever it is. And yeah, those hardware sales are fantastic every several years, whatever it is. But you getting a micropayment every single month for Apple TV Plus, for Apple News Plus, for Apple Music, for whatever the services are, is way better. You know, if you can get some segment of your population to keep paying you,
Yeah.
it becomes a steady rhythm of money. You know,
People forget. People forget. They don't even
well,
use the service
and you know, and whatever the schedule is, I mean, you know, you can watch Apple's earnings announcements. I mean, their earnings go through the roof when an iPhone comes out, and then the next quarter they still make a shit ton of money. They're huge, but they go down. You know, like you can see the up down is based around hardware. What Apple wants, what any company wants, is for a mid to high level where it's kind of consistent, and that's, you get it through the services. You know, that's, you know, Apple can talk all they want about how this is great for people and all that stuff, but really it's great for Apple, and fair enough, whatever. They're not a charity, but I mean, I don't know. I think bringing the Mac's capabilities to their other devices, their huge volume devices, that makes tons of sense. You know,
Yeah, John Luca in the chat room brings up a good point. He goes, "What we're talking about is Sidecar 2.0." Right? Because they introduced Sidecar last year, and I got to tell you, a lot of people are not using it. It was a cool novelty. Like when they first did it, I did it once. I was like, this is really cool. I could bring my desktop over. They could expand it.
Yep. Well, now you're running it on the device.
Now you're running it on the device. It's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Adam also said in the chat room, I'd love to see Paul live in Linux for a month and write a series about it. You know what? I would love to see that too.
Okay.
Come on, Paul.
Well, here's the deal.
1 month.
I do I've come closer to this than you may believe. So I have a series of articles called Living With, right? So I've done Living with Chromebook. I've done Living with Windows 7 when it was on the way out. I have 2 I've started but never published, right? One is called Living with PC Gaming, and one of them is called Living with Linux. And since the pandemic started, I've also thought of doing one. I guess I'd call it like Living with a Laptop, because what that means is, like, today I have a desktop computer here that I use for podcast writing, whatever. And then obviously, like, I'll spend sometimes afternoons in a different room or upstairs in the bed or whatever, and I'll use a laptop. So the idea there was just using a laptop all the time. I have tried to make Linux work for me so that I could write this series. And the truth is I can't get into it. Like it's like it's a step too far. Like I pay close attention to what's going on in the Linux world, closer than I think many realize. I install so many distributions virtually in a virtual environment first, just to kind of see how it's going. I always have a couple of computers that have Linux on them, and everything doesn't work. I don't know what else to say. I mean, Linux doesn't do touch, for one thing. That's not a huge deal. But, you were talking about touch in the thing in the Mac. I mean, I find myself, I had elementary OS on a 15-inch HP laptop. And, they have the menus up in the corner. You kind of, I'm sitting there hitting the screen. I'm like, why isn't this doing it right? Because it's Linux, But it's all I'm saying is I will probably get there. Believe it or not, this is something that I've been basically trying to do for a long time. And I just can't, and have never gotten over that hump. I can't explain.
I gotta
exactly
tell you though,
why,
if there's any moment for the usability of Linux to be easy, it's now, right?
I mean, well, it is. It's better than it's ever been, for sure.
Yeah.
Linux suffers from, I think there are too many distributions, for one thing. I think that's confusing. There are different formats for these, I'll just call them stores, for lack of a better term, these repositories of apps, which I think is a neat thing to have in the OS. But they're different.
And they were the
even
first
things
to do it,
like,
by the way. Ubuntu was probably the first to do like a app store.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in modern day, I mean, I think I feel
Modern
like,
day.
yeah. I mean, there have been attempts over the years. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I even Ubuntu. Like, how many different versions of Ubuntu are there? 8, or 9 for different, different window managers, different. I mean, some are designed for lower end devices with, the kind of a light and thin and light.
I just need to find a device.
UX.
We were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was I can't remember if it was on the actual show or on the post show, but we were talking about using Linux and the different distros and how beautiful they are. Some of them. I just need to find a device to run it on. Like I don't have an outdated. I don't have a device that's
right.
Just on that
will work.
cusp.
It will just work. Yeah.
Yeah, because I have a bunch of surfaces that I don't want to do. I'll tell you that.
No. You don't. I would never screw with that on a Surface. I think the best one that's kind of a mainstream computer is probably the Dell XPS 13 because they have a developer edition that does come with Linux. I reviewed the Windows version of that recently, and I don't remember the exact with the exact feature set, but there were 3 or 4 things where it said these won't work in Linux. Whatever they were. So probably like facial recognition was one of them. Maybe the fingerprint reader. I don't actually recall, but there were some features like I think it had like a. I'll just make something up because I actually don't remember. But one of them might have been like Dolby Atmos speakers. Like you're not going to get Dolby Atmos in Linux or something like that. So there's still, I mean, even on a fully supported system, there's still issues. But you get, Lenovo just made an announcement that they're going to certify all of their workstation class products, which is, granted kind of a small number of products, but that they will run and be compatible with Linux. That's actually really interesting. And that sets the stage for them to bring it down market to ThinkPad or whatever. That would, maybe. I've been open to this for a long time. I joke about Linux a lot. But I would do it. I mean, I would try it for sure. I just, you don't have any, it's hard to explain. Like I actually do this a lot and I'll bring the thing up on a computer and it's like, oh, this doesn't work. Or the track speed is terrible because honestly, on most older HP laptops, those trackpads are terrible. They only recently got good, but I've tried. I will keep trying. I'm not going to give up on it, but I just don't want. Please don't think that I've ignored this or have never even thought about it.
You're ignoring it, Paul. You've been ignoring it for all these.
PaulHatesLinux.com. You can see the whole story.
Hey, we were since we were talking about the UI of Mac. Let's touch on this Windows 10 Insider preview build that gives us a new glimpse at the start menu. They redesigned it slightly.
Yeah. Well, did they? This is such a subtle change.
Smaller icons on the actual side, like the listing of apps.
No, all they did was they got rid of the box on the icons. I think they're the same size. This was so subtle that when I brought it up on a Surface Book 2, I had to go look at my other computer and look at them side by side because I thought I didn't get it, and I was like, this can't be right. And I did get it. It's super subtle. And I wrote an article about this morning. I compared this to 2 things from Microsoft's past. Pre-Ribbon, Microsoft used to have something they called putting lipstick on a pig, where they would change the UI of Office with every version so that if you were looking over the shoulder of someone using it, you could tell at a glance what version of Office it was. And they didn't do this to make it better, although, obviously there were sometimes improvements related to the menus and toolbars and things, but they changed the UI only for that reason, so you could tell, because they didn't want it to keep looking the same every single version, because obviously there are different capabilities and you want to know what you're looking at. This is not like that. This is less than that. They literally took it's the same Windows 10 UI and they just subtly changed the style. The other thing I compared it to was Windows Mobile 6.5, which a lot of people probably don't remember, but after the iPhone came out, So Microsoft, honestly, they came out. There were some good ideas, but the problem was all they really changed was the lock screen and the home screen. Once you got into an app, once you got below the home screen in the UI, whether it was like a control panel type interface, whatever they called it at the time. Well, those were all designed for the little stylus that used to come with those devices. So home screen, you could hit it with your hands. It was probably, I can't remember what you called it. Remember we had the
honeycomb UI. That was their future.
Yeah, well, it was different looking and it was it was unique. It was, you could make the argument it was kind of a first take on a tile type thing. but it was just surface level. Once you got below once you launched something, the touch was gone. You couldn't touch other things. And that's, to me, like this new start menu thing is like, I don't know. I use Windows every day. I write about Windows every day. I write books about Windows. I feel like I would notice this if it was big.
Yeah.
I was really excited to see it. And when it came up, I was like, oh, that's, and by the way, the other little splash of cold water to the face is Apple is going to come out with a whole UX that's going to be on every Mac day 1 September, consistent across the board. This start menu thing, the earliest this could appear is April 2021. This is not coming in the next version of Windows.
Yeah.
It's coming maybe in a future version. It might not even be in that version. So yeah, I mean, I guess enjoy that if you're on the dev channel in the Insider program. It looks fine. I mean, it's if you like the Windows 10 UX today, you're going to be okay with it. But it's too bad. It's too bad because Apple just announced this sweeping change, and it's like, look, they're doing it right.
Yeah.
And then Microsoft's, look, we have a start menu. It's like, yeah, it looks exactly like the other one.
Yeah. I want to get your opinion on this. This week, actually, was it yesterday this came out? Yeah, the 30th. I apologize, a couple days ago. YouTube TV has increased its monthly subscription cost. This is a big deal. It's $64.99 now. This is now, you are in cable territory. So I just the evolution of cord cutting, right? And the beginning cause, the reason for this was that you want to break this concept that you're locked into a contract for 2 years, you're paying hundreds of dollars a month to get content, when in reality you could kind of pick and choose and go with a digital way of getting this content at a much cheaper cost via Sling TV, AT&T's AT&T.
Do you remember what the price was when YouTube TV first launched?
I want to say it was definitely under $50. What was it? 40?
Oh no, it was 35 at the most. It was possibly 20, possibly $29.99, but
it could have been.
It was either 30 or 35. But
it's $64.99 now.
Yeah, so it's gone. It's almost doubled, right? So it's not their fault. I mean, the unfortunate reality is that there's a reason. Well, this isn't the only reason, but the reason that cable TV went with these packages is because the content creators demanded it. It's not important what the exact companies are, but imagine there's a company like that has one popular channel, like Comedy Central or something, but they own these 20 other channels. And they're like, well, you're not getting Comedy Central unless you buy these other pieces of crap down here, whatever they are. Yeah. And that's how that works. And so your cable bill goes up $20 instead of $5, like, because you just wanted the one thing. And the reality is, this is what's happening with the cord cutting services. They're running into the same problem. So their users are demanding. What's that?
Licensing fees.
Yeah, it's just. But remember, so you touched on, I think, the thing that people need to keep in mind. It's fair to say 3 years ago, whenever it was, when this thing first came out, there were two reasons you would adopt this. One was the price, which was much lower, and the second was the ability that you're not on a yearly contract. You can leave, you can come and go at any time. And that second one is still the case, and it still makes cord cutting better than cable, because you could say, look, we don't even watch live TV anymore for the most part. At this point, we don't watch any live TV. So if, I don't know, like if sports came back and we wanted to watch football, I could say, well, October through January, we're going to pay for YouTube TV, and then we're done. We'll just turn it off. We don't pay for it anymore. And so still cheaper than cable. I mean, it's almost double what it was, and whatever, that's nobody's fault, but that sucks. Yeah, it's just too bad. But remember that the advantage, the central advantage, I would argue, is still there, and that's the ability to come and go.
The ability to come and go. So I did a little comparison on how much Fios costs now.
Mm-hmm.
My God, I got to tell you, it's still cheaper, but not by much.
Mm-hmm. Still cheaper.
The cost. It's
what?
still cheaper to be online. Like YouTube TV is still cheaper.
Oh, of course.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. You got to remember, though, that like for Fios or any cable company or anything like a cable company, they're subsidizing the cost of the TV part of it and the phone part of it because they're doing internet. And so like these companies don't want to be just like a dumb pipe. They want to get these extra services, and so they price them as attractively as they can, and they do bundles that put all of these things together because they want you to have one or two phone lines and TV with premium channels and the highest speed internet you can get. And then they put it all together and they're like, look, if you paid for this stuff separately, it'd be like $100 more, but we're only charging you like $150 a month. And you're like, oh, great, I saved some money. It's like, wait, you're paying $150 a month for this? like it's a lot of money. You know, you can make free phone calls. Everyone has a cell phone, but I mean, make phone calls over the internet if you have to. You can watch TV over the internet if you want to. Yeah. So it's these are tough businesses. I mean, I wish I could get FiOS, but I can't imagine I'm ever going to pay for cable TV again. I just can't imagine it.
I can't commit to the years, but again, remember, hardware's you got to now pay for the hardware, right?
This is the hardware thing you're also paying for. That's right.
You got the hardware cost, so now you need more than one, so you're gonna get two of these. So okay, fine, you need 2 boxes. That's like $8.99 on top of that. You're paying at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a month. Or to be clear, you never pay for it, right?
No, you're paying every month.
You're leasing it or whatever. You're subscribing to it. I mean, look, you have to buy an Amazon device, a Roku, an Apple TV, whatever, but you buy it and you use it for years. I mean, and these things typically cost like $100 or less. You're not paying, $8.99 a month per device because little Johnny's got to have one up in his bedroom. You got to have one in your master bedroom. You have to have one in the cellar in the game room or whatever you have. Yeah. I mean, that's what happened to me. I mean, one day I looked at my cable bill and I was like, because we were on, FiOS is Verizon. You could put your cell phone stuff into it. We were paying like $250 a month or some crazy thing. I was like, what is this? What are we paying for? It's like we have 2 landlines. They're not landlines.
Yeah.
They just call them landlines. There's no copper. If the internet goes down, you can't make a call. Like that's what a landline is. It's something that always works unless somebody, snips the wire. So yeah, at some point we just had that wake up call and it was like, okay. And we went back and forth on, we didn't go very smoothly away from cable, but we did eventually do it. And, yeah, I don't think I just can't imagine ever going back.
What do you think the sweet spot's going to be for the pricing? Do you think they're just going to constantly increase it, or is there going to be a revolt with this? Because a lot of people are very upset.
Of course. But, look, this pricing thing is an issue everywhere. Someone today was complaining, like Spotify is a music service, and they just announced a duo service, which is for couples. So they have like an individual premium, they have duo, they have family, and then they have like a student pricing. And what they were saying was like $9.99 a month for a music service is too much. This thing should be $6.99. And the response to that is, yeah, we all agree as consumers, I'd love to pay $3 less a month. You got to understand something. They lose money at $9.99. The reason that service is $9.99 still and not $12.99, which is what I think Spotify would have to charge to make money on it.
Yeah.
Is because Apple Music is $9.99 and it's subsidized by their iPhone business. And they don't have the true cost of business bothering them, and they can keep the prices artificially low. And the truth is that would be more expensive too. Imagine the outrage if music services one day went $12.99 or $14.99 or whatever it is. I mean, and the reality is it's going to have to happen, guys. Like we're living on borrowed time here. And YouTube TV was, I think, remember Sony left the business last year. This is why they were like, look, we want this thing for this to make sense. We would have to charge so much that no one would want it anyway. And so they just left.
Yeah.
That sucks. That's just terrible.
Just how it is. I don't know what the answer here is, but you know what? There's so much content out there. You don't have to have cable, first of all, unless you like, live sports, but you can still figure something out. But that's like for me, I'm watching wrestling. I'm watching baseball. That's about it. I don't ever watch anything else on live programming other than those, or maybe if it's breaking news or something. But that's all streaming. They're giving that away.
I talk about this all the time, and I literally, this is a conversation my wife and I have had. If we have this summer we have 2 kids at home. Usually we have 1, but we have a kid in college who's not usually with us, but we're still subsidizing his life, right? So we get like Spotify Premium, so he gets Spotify for free through me. He has the Netflix sign in, the Apple TV sign in, you do the family sharing stuff, whatever it is. And he can, from New York can watch, again, I'm paying for it, but at some point that has to go away. And so, and we pay for multiple other services too. It's disgusting. At some point that goes away, and
But let
my
me ask
wife
you,
and I literally.
do you pay these services because you feel like you kind of have to be in the ecosystem to cover it, or if you weren't covering technology, would you have?
Yeah.
You would.
Yeah. So in this one case, I would have all of the ones I am currently paying for, and it's because of the family. Because we have, we pay for, it's like Netflix and Hulu, and we get Amazon with Prime, we get Disney now. Although, by the way, after the first year, Disney will probably be done. And then we do this thing where, for a month or two, we'll pay for what's now called HBO Max because we want to binge watch some HBO series, or Showtime because we want to binge some Showtime series. But in the future, and like I said, my wife and I literally had this conversation. We'll do this. We're going to do a month-to-month thing, and it will say, look, it's July 1st. For this month, we're going to watch Netflix. That's all we're going to pay for. We're going to get rid of the other stuff that we're paying for and not pay for that. And then, but we'll pay attention to as new things come out. And so maybe as August approaches, maybe there's a one or two new series that are only on like Hulu, and we will drop Netflix and just pay for Hulu that 1 month, and like that. That to me
It's worth it for you.
Look, it requires a little bit of work, but I don't even want to list out. I probably have written this somewhere, but if I were to list out like all of the online services that I pay for right now, like entertainment related, it's got to be $100 a month or something, right? It's got to be, or close to something like it's stupid. Yeah. So that maybe that bill could be $10 or $15 a month.
Yeah, I think bundling. I think at the end of the day, these streaming services right now, they're getting so bloated with the price and the multitude of services in different areas. I think you're going to start seeing these bundles come into play. We're seeing that already with HBO Max, where you're being bundled with, it's all. I mean, essentially all the Warner Media Turner properties more than anything else. But it's bundling, like ESPN. I mean, it's bundling with with Disney. You're seeing this happen.
You know what you miss, and I don't mean not miss, but what you don't have with online services that I don't miss is the conversation you would have with a cable company. Like, anyone ever do this? You call your cable company, because at this point you have to call them, and you're like, hey, I want to drop the landline part of this, and I want to, I don't want HBO, and for some reason I'm paying for five premium channels. I don't even watch these things, and they're like, oh yeah, you can do that. No problem. And they knock everything off, and then they're like, okay, now your bill is $5 more a month.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? And they're like, oh, because you were getting a special deal because you were doing the bundling before, but now that you're not bundling these things, it's going to actually cost you more to get rid of them. And then it's like a hostage situation,
Yeah. You're locked. You can't drop anything.
It's the worst. And I know 50% of the people listening have experienced what I'm talking about. It's awful. So the nice thing about an online service is there's no person involved. There's, I'm just turning off Netflix. I mean, they might send you an email. We're sorry to see you go, blah, 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 whatever. But I just turn it off, turn it on. I don't know. I something like every once in a while on cable, there'll be like a deal. You can get HBO, Cinemax, and Showtime for $10 a month, and you're like, for 6 months, you're like, you know what? That's a good deal. I'm going to promise myself I'm going to watch a lot of content, and that's going to make it totally worth it. You do it for like 2 weeks, you forget about it. Yeah. And then 9 months later, you're like, what's this extra $35 on the bill every month? It's because it went back to the normal price. You didn't even notice.
That's a lot of money.
Stuff like this. It's stupid.
Guys, I want to remind you guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Guys, we're doing the show each and every week, generally on Tuesdays or Thursdays, depending on the schedule. I tend to lean towards Thursdays, but if there's breaking news or anything, we do the show earlier in the week, obviously. But hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, subscribe to us. We're everywhere podcasts are available, audio and video form, on Tharat.com and, of course, on GFKnetwork.com. But if you're here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We're on our way to 10,000 subscribers, which would be amazing to hit by the end of the year. So, I don't know. I think when it comes to content consumption, this is now, people are starting to see that the concept of cutting the cord doesn't necessarily mean it's cheaper. It just... The concept is it
used to be an incredible deal.
Oh my God!
By the way, I mean, YouTube has also had to add channels over time. I remember 3 years ago, right, when we first made this switch, HGTV wasn't available, and that was one of the things I was like, we watched those shows at the time. We really wanted that. That's available now, but they don't get that stuff for free. Like, they have to pay for it. So they have all these customers and they're like, well, I want this one channel. And it's like, well, that one channel is part of a bundle we have to pay for, and that's the price goes up,
Yeah.
up, and that's how it happens.
Anything I'm missing here with
this week in news?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, the Apple thing was almost a week and a half ago, whatever. It's still, the driving thing today is just amazing.
What would hey, let me ask you this? What were the initial benchmarks on the hardware?
Yeah, I don't remember the actual scores, but they were basically roughly identical to what like Surface Pro X was getting. The problem is that Surface Pro X was running that benchmark natively because there is an ARM version of that. But on the Mac, there isn't. And so that was running through the Rosetta 2 emulation. And that means that the native performance would be significantly higher.
Yeah. And especially considering this isn't even the chip it's going to ship with.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
So this is just
it's also only running on half of the cores.
Oh, is it really? It's not running on all?
But it is the performance cores. I mean, let's not worry too much about that stuff. But I mean, one of the big advantages of the ARM platform is they have efficiency and performance cores. And so, depending on what you're doing, if you're streaming video or something, your performance cores are basically, mostly off at that point, because that's not really, honestly, it's just a bandwidth issue for the most part.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see. I mean, obviously, this is just the first step. I mean, there's going to be more. We're going to see actual hardware,
soon.
Yeah.
Right. When do you think they'll announce it? Probably in 2 months. This is shipping in the fall.
Yeah. One time to do it might be if they do that, a hardware event in the fall, like they usually do for iPhone, or they might just do it separately. Yeah. I would assume this holiday season is when we'll see.
I really hope. I really hope that the first device that had. Well, here's a question. I can't remember what the answer to this was, but did they say that it's going to be an entire product line? Like all the products are going to have this, or are they going to initially start off with one and then add them gradually?
No, they didn't. Okay, they didn't say specifically. The rumor is that there's going to be one desktop and one laptop. Look, I'll go out on a limb and say whatever this laptop is, the rumor is a Pro device, not an Air or whatever. But whatever that thing is, they're going to sell like 1 million of those right away. I mean, there is a huge audience of people that really wants to see what's going on there. The other thing, I actually, this probably came up last Monday. I think it was the same day, if I'm not mistaken. I had ordered a MacBook Air, remember, a refurbished one, because it was like $800 or $900. And it arrived that night, and I was kind of reminded, Apple right now artificially limits the MacBook Air because they use like a kind of a lesser processor. It's technically like a Y series processor. It is at least quad core this year. The 2018 model was a dual core version, but it's not as powerful as like the MacBook Pro. It's they just, to separate them, they do this kind of thing. And for whatever it's worth, I mean, day-to-day performance is fine, but if you do stuff like have a bunch of stuff going at once, or in my case, I'm using it mostly for software development, that fan kicks in and it's
loud.
You can kind of see the problem. Like when Apple was talking about how like they ran into these problems with Intel, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, we have Intel chips in PCs, they work great. I don't see what the deal is, but the appeal of a Mac that has no fans and is completely silent, that it has anywhere near the performance of a Mac today, that would be kind of amazing,
Yeah, I'm very curious about that device. Lightweight. The other thing, I mean, I don't know if we spoke about this last week, but the thermal cooling in the Macs are terrible.
Yeah,
the way that
that's
they
what I've
design
heard.
it. So if you open the back of this, the fan it's just not good. The way the fan placement
like
is,
a leaf blower.
Yeah. So when these things heat up, you're really going to avoid that when you go to an ARM-based chipset, especially if that's yours. I'm curious if they're going to incorporate the same kind of heating technology that they're doing. Are they going to do a better thermal system inside of these? I'm curious to see.
I think they're going to be fanless. Well, I mean, at least the laptops, I just got, coincidentally today, a review unit from Lenovo of something called a Flex 5G, which is a Windows 10 on ARM device. It's running the latest Qualcomm PC chip, the 8CX, and it looks just like a normal convertible PC. It's nice, aluminum, nice keyboard, nice screen,
It's
et cetera,
aluminum?
et cetera. Yeah.
In the photo, it looks that's actually impressive. It looks plastic in the photo.
Oh no, it doesn't. Oh, okay.
I was just looking at.
I assume it's aluminum. It's
Yeah.
definitely okay. Well, it doesn't feel plastic, but there's not even a heat vent on this thing. It's at least not that you can see. Maybe they're venting through the keyboard or something, but it's certainly not got. It doesn't make a sound. Like there are compatibility problems for sure. I've already run into that. I mean, literally like an hour in, I'm like, oh yeah, right.
Is this the one that's running? Now I'm confused. Is this running an 8-core processor?
It is an 8-core processor.
Okay.
But it's ARM, right? So it's 4 energy efficiency cores and 4
performance,
performance. Yeah. Yep.
So it's running at actually I just found it here, 2.8 gigahertz. And then it's the Qualcomm, what is it, 680 graphics chip. So everything is built in. How was it? How was the performance on this? Any good?
Well, just running around the UI, it's great. I haven't had time. All I've done so far is signed in with my account and try to find. I went to look for some apps. I had switched from Adobe Photoshop Elements to Affinity Photo. Adobe Photoshop Elements will not run on this device because it's a 64-bit app, and I was really hoping Affinity would.
Yeah.
But when I went to this, it's a 64-bit app, so I can't.
I was talking to someone about 5G right now. Have you tested it in your area yet, or no?
No, but this device has a 5G SIM in it, so
very curious to know.
Yeah,
very curious to know how it does with battery life.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, I'll have to. Well, I can just turn off the Wi-Fi. I was gonna say I'll go outside, and I kind of want to drive around the area to see if it gets better anywhere. Like I don't know what Verizon's 5G coverage looks like
in that area,
in the hinterlands where I live. But I mean, we're close to Allentown. Allentown's well, actually, it's a small city, but it's a city. I mean, they must have something. I'm curious. I mean, if because the dream of this is like I could step out in the yard, turn the Wi-Fi off, and download a movie faster than I could with this thing connected to Ethernet. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Well, here's my question, right? Like, I'm curious how much better your speeds are going to be, because on 4G, here where I am, right? I'm in New York City, so obviously it's a very different market.
Yeah,
I'm getting 100. I get 125 by 42 on average
on 4G.
On 4G,
by the way, that's amazing.
That's remarkable.
No, it's amazing.
So I don't have this, oh my God, I have to go to 5G to get the speeds.
Right. Because you're already getting
remarkable speeds. Yeah. To get it on my phone. And also, some of it has to do with the technology in the phone on what it's capable of grabbing.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? The chip, you may have the option of getting a gigabit, but I got to tell you, a lot of people don't even know this.
Right.
Here's a shocker, guys. You sign up for gigabit service and you only have a laptop and you're using Wi-Fi, there's a good chance your laptop cannot do those speeds.
Right.
My Mac can't hit a gigabit on its Wi-Fi. It's impossible for it. I could be next to the device. It just won't.
Yeah. It's funny. I've seen that. I just added a Wi-Fi point to our mesh networking thing. And, oh, good. One of them's offline. I guess. My daughter keeps unplugging this thing. I'm going to kill her. Anyway, I did it after I added it. I did a test in different rooms, and one of the things you can do is to test the speed to each of the devices that's connected to it, and the speed is very like just across computers. There'll be like one computer that's like 286, and then the next one's like 54, and they're sitting next to each other, and it's just some compatibility between I don't something about the chipset in the device, or I don't know. I'm going to take this thing out of her room. I can't stand that she unplugs this thing. What does she
unplug?
The Wi-Fi point. Last time I said this, she goes, "I never touched this thing." I'm like, "Really? Maybe one of the cats is unplugging it because it's offline." And then I show it to her, and she goes, "Oh yeah, no, I unplugged that." I'm like, "I know you did. Stop doing that."
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Just unplug it. I'm just going to tell her to unplug. I'm going to message her. I'm going to tell her to keep unplugging it. Just do me a favor. Drive your dad nuts. Unplug everything. No, but I'm very curious how it's going to do.
You need the internet.
Nobody needs the internet, Paul. That's what I've learned. I'm over
She's
it.
on it all day long, Andrew.
I want to go back. I want to go backwards. I want there. You know what? You know what I would love? 1 week without it. That's it. No internet for a week. I think it'll cause a major. It'll cause a massive reset on all of us.
Well, you'll have some a bad couple of days, you know, at first. But yeah, maybe you'll get used to it.
You know, we
hey, when I was 18 years old, I got into a Volkswagen Super Beetle in New Mexico and drove it all the way across the country with a friend of mine. And we had one paper map. It's what we had.
It's so funny.
I can't even imagine allowing a child to do something like that today. Like,
I was just talking about that with somebody, and I was in Jersey yesterday visiting a friend, and I've done the trip a bunch of times, so I could kind of, if I had to not use GPS, I could get there, right? I could remember I got to go over the George Washington Bridge, I got to take SR 17, I got to get off at this exit. I could remember this, but however, if you're telling me, hey Andrew, why don't you come by? I'm having a barbecue. Okay,
right.
How do I get to you? You're going to give me some convoluted fakakta instructions. Okay, there's going to be a Sunoco. You're going to turn left at the Sunoco. Then you're going to go down 3 lights, and at the church, you're going to make a right. That was the only way. I can't look at you have
there
to
was
know
there
how
was
to
an
get
SNL
around.
skit about this, the way people in New England give directions, you know. Take a left at the retarded kids selling fireworks. It's like this is the way people talked in the 90s, you know. But I might have there was a regional store in New England called Lechmere's, which was sort of like the prototype for Best Buy. You know, Lechmere's was the Best Buy in the 1970s, and it was only in New England. And I used to go there all the time. I love this place. But Lechmere's in the early 90s went out of business, and then Lechmere's, a building, it sat there. The signs were all gone. And then eventually they tore down the building, but they used to use the parking lot for those fairs that traveled around, you know, where the roller coaster wasn't tethered to anything. It would actually move up and down as
the Carney
Carney thing. Yep. But the signs for this thing, it would be, whatever the carnival was called, it would always say it's in the Lechmere's parking lot. And if you didn't know what, like, you'd have to have lived there your whole life to have known that was Lechmere's. Like there wasn't one sign that said Lechmere's anywhere. But that's how we gave the directions, you know.
That's how you did it.
Lechmere's parking lot.
But we are very lucky. Certain things, like I'll keep a GPS, I'll keep a cell phone. I don't want to be able to. I just want to do a week where I don't take my phone anywhere. I don't use it if I'm sitting at a bar. I feel like we're so distracted. We talk about this. You know what? Let's save it for What to Talk. We're gonna continue, guys. By the way, if you're watching live, stay tuned. We're doing What to Talk right after this, where we'll go into another subject for a little bit. But if you're listening to the podcast, you're listening here on YouTube, post-recording, go sign up to Patreon. Patreon.com/what the. Yes, sir.
Before we do that, I'm going to go downstairs and plug in that stupid Wi-Fi thing because...
Go ahead. You do it.
I just want to... I'm going to plug it in and then hit my daughter in the head with it.
Do it. Go ahead.
So she won't forget. This is got to stay plugged in. It only works when it's plugged in. That's the point of it.
No, imagine
it's not a planter. It's internet.
Maybe she doesn't want it. Maybe she doesn't want internet anymore.
I don't. No, that's not it.
All right, you go and plug it in while I wrap it up here. While you come back, guys. Again, hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. Subscribe to us everywhere podcasts are available. We do the show each and every week. We're gonna do What to Talk right after this. We're gonna probably talk about the subject we were talking about, just surviving without technology. I want to get what the chat room thinks of this. I want to get the chat room's opinion of this because this is something that I constantly toy with, especially now with the way that the internet is and just constant stimulation over and over again. Might be better for us. Let's see. We'll talk about it. Go to our website, jfknetwork.com. Subscribe everywhere podcasts are available, and we'll see you all next week. Take care. Well, that was fast and nice. All right. So I want to talk about this because I find the whole concept of it, I'm always interested just to say, you know what? I don't want to look at this phone. I don't want to see my text messages. I don't want to look. Things could wait a couple hours. Are you back? Yes. Was it plugged in or unplugged?
It was unplugged.
Okay.
By the way, in the finished part of the cellar that she lives in, like some kind of a troll, there are 2 power receptacles within 4 feet of this thing. And there's only one thing plugged into the 4 available ports. She doesn't have to unplug it. Like, why would it be unplugged?
Why would it be unplugged?
Right. I talked to her about this. Kids.
Jesus. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. You know, I have the conversation. My kids unplug the doorbell constantly.
Okay.
But the difference is my kids are 3 and 4.
You're right. Right. I wish I could tell you that things get better. Yeah, look at that. It's back. And the signal is great.
Wonderful. All right. Let's begin What the Talk. All right, guys. We're going to hit record in 3, 2, and 1. Everybody, welcome to What the Talk. This is our bonus show. We record this live each and every week exclusively on patreon.com/whatthetech. I'm Andrew Zan. Of course, I'm joined by Mr. Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
See, now I'm going to be self-conscious about that question. I'm doing pretty good, Andrew. Thank you.
Good. Suncast has a theory that there's a conspiracy here where Brad is telling your daughter to unplug the Wi-Fi.
Right.
I wouldn't put it past them.
I wish I brought my phone downstairs. I would have taken a picture of it. There's no reason for this, Andrew.
There's no reason for a lot of things. It kind of goes into what I wanted to talk about. On the show, we were talking about, and we'll do a quick conversation today. Because you know what I'm going to do today, Paul? I'm going to go tan in my yard. I'm going to get a couple drinks, and I'm going to lay out, and I want to get a nice tan. That's my goal.
I might go outside too, but I'll be in the shade.
In the shade, yeah.
Dude, I've been going to the gym. Did I tell you this?
Different. What?
I've been going to the gym.
Oh, your gym's opened?
Yep.
How are you doing with that? Because I know you were a little apprehensive about going out to eat.
I was, so I wear a mask. And actually, as of yesterday, the governor of Pennsylvania has ordered that everyone has to wear a mask anywhere in the public. So everyone's wearing a mask. So when I went today, they were turning people away who didn't have masks. So, and the other thing that's nice about the gym right now, which was well, I guess it was a little expected, but it's there aren't that many people there, Andrew. I don't have to wait for anything. So
I know, which is nice.
Just go to machine to machine. There's nobody there. It's nice. It's like it's my own gym,
which I like. So
it's safe, and I can work out.
You know what? I'm more concerned. I'm not that concerned, like with the gym, right? Obviously, wear a mask if you're in public, whatever. But at the gym, I'm more concerned that I'm touching something and I'm going to touch my face.
Yeah, well, so now you're wearing a mask, right? So that's not a concern. But so one problem I had with this gym, I had before was not the cleanest place in the world, right? So they were a little lackluster keeping up on cleaning and things, and gross people would use a machine and not clean it down. Now everyone's cleaning. So, and there are people in the gym walking around cleaning equipment, and I don't know. They sent out an email a couple weeks ago saying, "Hey, look, on whatever date the gym's going to reopen, here are the rules." And I mean, honestly, I was really impressed by how studious they were. Studious? Is that the right word? How
thorough?
Thorough, thank you. They were with, look, this is how it's going to be. I mean, we got to be serious about this. So obviously there's no classes, and they turned off and shut down every other elliptical type machine. They're maintaining distances, and now we have masks. So, I mean, I was wearing one anyway, but now everyone is. So it's good.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask you today was, would you be able to, and this is something I constantly told, we were talking about the Linux thing, and that kind of got me into this thought process,
Yeah. Yep.
Would you be able to just say disconnect for a week where you don't use technology the way we all use it now, where you're constantly connected? You use it like how we use it about 15 years ago, where if you want to get on the internet, you could be home, you could be on your computer and access everything on the internet, but this stays off. This phone does not become your personal notification center for everything that's happening at every second. Would you be able to do that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess the way I have to think about how I use this stuff now. So for one thing, I use technology to get work done, right? So the notion of it's not like I start writing with a pen and a piece of paper. I mean, I need computers to write. That's my job. So that's one thing. Because I've been working from home for a long time, and am primarily on a computer, which maybe is unusual compared to most people. I'm not really sure, but I've noticed, like I've had days where when I go to bed, I put the phone in my office, but I don't charge it. I don't like to charge it overnight. I think that's bad for the battery. So I only charge it like if I think of it. If I come in here in the morning, I'll plug it in for half an hour or whatever it is. I've had days where I've used the phone throughout the day. I'm not all day long on it, obviously, but I've used it. Take some pictures. We're out walking the dog or whatever. And I come up and I wake up in the morning and like the battery is like 85% or 73% or some pretty big number. And it's like, wow, like I actually don't use it a lot. So I'm kind of already skewing toward this thing you're talking about where, with the exception, of course, I'm on the computer all day long. I mean, I do use a computer. I think, I don't know, like the problem is I read with technology. I listen to audiobooks and podcasts and music with technology. I watch TV with technology. We were just talking about cord cutting services. I mean, I guess is the real question like about being connected to the internet?
Pretty
essentially,
much. It's not about taking a phone call, right? It's not about it's about the constant
it's about
connectivity.
Checking Facebook every 10 seconds or
exactly. Yeah.
What's going on? Refresh the news. We go to Twitter. Yeah. I could walk away from that easily. I mean, honestly, so we just talked about this, this notion that in the future, maybe my wife and I would have Netflix one month and Hulu the next and kind of save money that way. I mean, if you want to take it to a real extreme, I mean, I have a NAS full of ripped DVD movies or whatever, and it has music on it. How long could we go? Like we could just say, look, we'll watch, instead of watching TV for the next month, we'll watch a movie or TV show that we have already on the NAS. And that's our choices. How long could we go with just that?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be ideal, but we could almost go, not forever, but I mean, years probably, right? I mean, I guess if I wanted to be the Unabomber, as long as they had electricity,
you can survive with that.
I guess. I mean, I don't want to, but I mean, that would work.
I think I honestly think the constant connectivity is molding society. It's shifting the way we react to things, the way we consume information. Attention span. It's very impulsive. A reaction is impulsive.
Everyone gets more radical in their opinions, and
I don't know if we have. What I'm more concerned with, it's a state of tech immaturity, right? We know that this is all still new. We're in the infancy.
Yeah, but what if we're not? What if we were, and now we're just used to it, and now it's like an addiction, and we've become so dumb because our attention spans is zero, and we stop listening to opposing opinions, and we, we're just in our little bubbles, and we're like those guys in the Matrix. We're in a pod, just suckling off of something. Like, what if this is it?
I hope not. I hope that this is just tech immaturity, and I
hope so.
40 years go by, and they look at us and they say, "Look at these idiots just constantly looking at their phones."
Yeah, it'll be like smoking in a movie, right?
It's going to be smoking in a movie.
A black and white movie from the 40s or something. Everyone's smoking away the whole time. The entire frame is full of smoke, and it's like, were people really like this? It's like, yeah, I've flown on airplanes where there was a smoking section in the back, and the whole freaking plane was full of smoke.
Yeah,
that sounds ludicrous, right? Smoking on a plane. It sounds dangerous.
Smoking at a bar.
Yeah,
how about that? I mean, I know in Vegas it still goes on, but I went to a bar that was technically not supposed to be open, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And when I walked in there, it was 1990 again. The whole bar, it just ashtrays, and everybody's just smoking in the bar. They're not supposed to be open. They don't give a shit. They just want to make the money right now. And I walked out. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like in my mind, I'm like, this is like how it used to be. I sat there for 10 minutes.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh my God, I smell like crap.
I leaked. I came home.
Yeah.
Jess goes, oh my God, were you smoking? And I'm like, no. I'm like, this is just from people around me. She goes, you reek like you were smoking.
Yeah,
she actually said, you smell like Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's gross.
In Vegas, everything smells like cigarettes when you're sitting at a table.
Hey,
or a bar.
They banned smoking everywhere. I mean, I'm not surprised it happened here, but like in Europe, when places like Ireland and France, France France walks around this, but I mean, if you can ban it in bars in Ireland, I mean, it could succeed anywhere, and it changes places. I mean, that Tahiti place I would go to in Dedham, it was full of smoke for my entire life, and then sometime in the past 10 years, whenever they stopped it, I was like, this place will never be clean. But honestly, you go in there, and it's like, oh, this is great. Like, it's just, it's astonishing how places can change, how things can change.
I wouldn't be able to eat.
Yeah, right.
Listen, you want to smoke, you want to smoke.
It's the whole, like, you're driving home or you're on the train, you're like, oh, like, that's me. Like,
that's me.
It's in my clothes. Like, it's awful,
Listen, I used to smoke, I smoked till I was 25.
I never smoked, but yeah.
Yeah, I was 25 when I stopped. I just stopped one day. But I do think, your point is right. They're going to look back and be like, it's like smoking in a movie. They're going to look back and say, why? Why did you need to know all this stuff?
Yeah.
Well, but it is true.
We're starting to reject things like Facebook, we'll see. I mean, I kind of latched onto Instagram because it was about photography and I like good it's pretty.
But do you need to refresh? Do you need to?
No, I don't. Dude, I'm on Instagram.
That's what the problem is. Looking at it once, liking your photos, and calling it a day is one thing. But the fact that the apps are made to encourage you to constantly go back.
I'm on Twitter all day long, like an idiot. It's like I don't feel bad enough about myself yet. Let me see what's going on Twitter. And then, you get in there and you're like, just people and their stupid opinions, it's just aggravating. And then you just keep going back and back like a jerk.
I said the worst thing to happen is that people are trying to have very deep conversations that they're trying to have it within 140 characters. And that is the worst way to do it.
It's also
there's no ability for me to state what I think on a matter that's a little bit politicized. It is you are never going to win because you're always whatever you write will be taken as something else.
Right. Not to mention the fact that in that many characters, it's not possible to fully express anything. So someone will respond with, "Well, what about?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm not writing a book. It's a tweet. I'm sorry, I didn't hit the A to Z on this one. I was just making a joke." Like,
listen, somebody said this to me and they go, think about when Twitter came out. What were tweets? Tweets were just had a good time today. Watch the movie. It was just quick, everyday nonsense. And now the geopolitical discussions are happening, on Twitter, where it's an impossible forum for something like that. It's impossible. Yeah. But again, it's shifting society. I think we're going to have a great rejection of this eventually. And people are going to say, it's just filled with nonsense because the more populated things get, the more noise exists. And then you start ignoring it all. I don't know if we're going to have a generation of kids that are brought up and they reject this. For us, we didn't grow up on, listen, I'm a little younger than you, 36. I grew up with technology, not like this. There was no aspect of this. The fact that I had internet in my house and none of my friends had it.
Right.
I'm still part of that generation.
We had, my dad had a stereo, and I got like a cheap little Sears stereo up in my room or whatever. We had a video game console at one point. I had a computer, eventually by high school, basically, or whatever. We had cable eventually. That came pretty late to where I lived. That might be it. I don't know. Yeah, there wasn't much. I don't know. It's kind of proliferated. Even when my son was a baby, the first year he was around, we had a beeper. Remember? We didn't even have like a phone. There were no smartphones. There were no. We didn't even have a cell phone. I remember seeing a doctor, and I knew he was a doctor because he had a cell phone in his car in like 1990, and he was talking on it, driving like a drunk person, like a giant Mercedes, and thinking like, there's a future problem we're going to have. Mm-hmm. And, watching the guy weave because he's talking on the phone. And I was like, One day everyone's going to have one of those things.
Yeah.
That might not be good.
Yeah,
You know?
not good.
Yeah, I mean,
I
yeah,
don't know.
I'm surrounded.
I
I
don't know if
mean, in my room is probably several thousands of dollars worth of electronics. I mean, you can see a little bit of it behind me, but I mean, in front of me, it's like a
listen,
circus.
we've hit a point where I mean, Paul, you need to get on TikTok. You need to see what's going on there.
I've often said that to myself.
Yeah, you need to get on. We need more Thurrott content on TikTok. That's what we need.
Is
I
TikTok?
watched, oh, Paul,
is
this
it?
is great.
It's like a time limited thing, isn't it?
Yeah, there's like a minute video, but most videos are very short and it's dubbed with music. It's very different. But yesterday, when was it? About 2 days ago, I'm at the restaurant and it's like a group of like 25-year-olds pull up in their car. I'm watching them, and they're dancing, like a group dance, 45 minutes. They are now practicing this dance and recording it for TikTok.
Oh.
And I go, 45 minutes you spent on this.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Can you just have like a conspiracy theory channel on TikTok?
Wow.
Where none of it makes sense? It's just made up conspiracies? The World Health Organization is behind broccoli. You know? They want you to have broccoli. That's how coronavirus is spreading.
The big broccoli is behind the
big broccoli. Yeah, actually, there's a girl on there that I've seen on TikTok. She talks about big almond, and he talks about how
they're keeping the price of almond milk artificially high.
Exactly. Yeah, and no, the whole conspiracy is the expiration date on almond milk, right?
Yeah,
because her theory is that it's a fake expiration date on almond milk.
And you think that the almond industry is behind this?
That's what she says. Yeah, that's her whole thing.
You know what we got to get her going on is the thing that drives me crazy, which is related to this, the paper towels where it's like the half sheet comes off.
Half sheet comes off.
Because I never want a half sheet of a paper towel. I don't understand what this volume is. Like, if you were using a toilet, would you ever want a sheet of toilet paper? I mean, even one sheet is not enough for anything. I mean, I don't know what this is, but I believe the point of this is you go to tear it off, even though you've pulled out enough for two, which is really one, and then it tears in half, and then you're like, and you throw it away, and you get
wasting more.
See, I think that's big paper towel.
Big paper towel. Big bounty.
That's the conspiracy. That's how they get you. That's what the site should be. It's that's how they get you.com.
That's how they get you.com. You want to talk about big conspiracy? The GFQ Twitter account is gone.
Right.
Okay?
You know why? Big broccoli got it.
Big broccoli. No, but in all, so this morning I went to get on there and post that we're doing a show.
Sure.
The account does not exist anymore. It is gone. Right. The username's gone. The account's gone. The email address was never registered according to them. They keep sending me an email because they're like, I went to the support page and I applied and I wrote down what the problem is. There's no account, and I'm getting an email back saying, hey, we had problems with your support ticket. There's no email associated to an account. No shit. Because something happened.
You don't have to have an email.
It says, we're having trouble locating the Twitter account using the information you provided. Please reply to this email with the following. What is the email address on the account? Do you have access to the email address? What is the username on this account? When was the last access to the account?
Right.
What is the email address?
Well, I wish you luck. I don't know how you're ever going to get this back.
I don't even know what to do.
Right. That's really messed up.
It just doesn't show up, and I'm wondering if it's a database issue. I don't know.
I think it's Big Broccoli.
Big Broccoli's behind it.
Yep.
Rob H says, I use half sheets. That's what he said in the chat.
There's always one. Yeah. When I have half a spill, it's exactly the right amount.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm slowly learning to turn things off. Like sometimes I just see stuff and I'm like, ugh, I don't even want to go on the internet anymore. I'm not looking at it.
Sure.
I told you when I was in Ireland, I was amazed by the fact that people don't have their cell phones out like they do here.
Yeah.
This was something I genuinely observed, and the person I was with, I was like, am I just crazy? Is this not a thing? He goes, no. He goes, honestly, I don't see it here like I do in America. And I looked,
Right.
people were on freaking dates. Guess what they're doing? They're looking at each other. They're at the bar. They're talking to each other. He said the only time people actually look at their phone is maybe once in a while. They'll like glance and see a message or see if they got a call, and they put it back. They're not sitting there refreshing Twitter. It's just some.
Well, you shouldn't be.
And these were young. And by the way, these were young.
Yeah.
I mean, 20s, late
They're
teens, 20s. Maybe they know. Listen, maybe they're doing it the right way.
I think they are.
I thought to myself, and I thought this the other day. I went out. My battery was like half full, right? I'm a couple blocks away from my house. Jess knows where I am. My phone is most likely going to survive if I don't use it. And I went to the person behind the bar, and I'm like, can you do me a favor? And I was like panicking to charge the phone. I got to charge the phone. So I'm like, do you have a charger back there? She's like, yeah. And then I was about to hand her the phone. I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I don't need to charge the phone. Oh. This is fine. I'm just not going to look at my phone. I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm not going to hold it in my hand. Because this is what I do. I just have the phone in my hand, and I'm constantly checking for notifications. Going on Twitter, hitting refresh. Going to Twitter, hitting refresh. It's almost like an addiction. I mean, it is. It is an addiction.
Literally an addiction. Yeah, it's
not almost like it is.
Yeah,
so
it is. Yep.
I said, fuck it. I'm just going to have my drink. I'm just going to have my drink.
Sure.
I'm going to get drunk.
Just like in the olden times.
They're going
to play that music over the roller thing, and you're going to put on your top hat. And stroll on home.
I'm making a conscious effort to
it's
not
good.
use my
I
phone.
think that's healthy.
That's what I want to do. This is going to be my new experiment. Remember a couple of years ago, I did an experiment where I had my Windows phone and I was taking that out and I was trying to see if I could survive just on Wi-Fi that I ping. So if I'm able to hit on Wi-Fi. And it worked. It worked too well, especially in my neighborhood. I'm not saying like I went around the city, but in my town, I was able to get on like Spectrum's free Wi-Fi service. So that was something. At least that was some sort of Wi-Fi. And then I was just connecting to Wi-Fi in businesses that I was going to. If I was going to a restaurant, everybody had Wi-Fi open. And I was able to take Skype calls. I was able to check Twitter. I was able to do all of it. And then I ended up doing the same thing when I was in Europe, because Europe is just Wi-Fi everywhere. The buses have Wi-Fi. The taxis have Wi-Fi. The trains have Wi-Fi. And I was like, this is actually a fascinating experiment. You really don't need a cell service if this is how you use your phone. If you use it like a normal person, where you don't need to be connected to Twitter every second of the day, and you're just taking, emergency purposes and just to check every now and then, I think that's the way to do it.
Well, good luck convincing the other 350 million people that live in this country. But I agree. Less in this case.
And we cover tech. We cover tech, and I love technology. I love
covering
it. I love using these devices.
Like, you don't want to be part of the problem, you know.
There's so many times, like one thing that I shockingly have is self-control, especially with replying to people on Twitter. There's so many times I just want to write something and I start writing it. And I'm like, what are you doing?
I can't tell you how many times I've written this horrible screed in response to something someone wrote, and then maybe just ignore that.
There's so much, like right now, I just got an ad right on Twitter. It's the world's first single probe at-home ultrasound to see your baby. They're selling an ultrasound at home.
Okay.
It's $2,000.
Wow. And you really don't need it for that long.
Do we need this? Do we, is it?
Well, do we need it? It's kind of the wrong question. It doesn't matter. We're getting it. I mean, but yeah.
It's so weird. It's so weird. We're just constantly need to know. We need to know everything. Everything is a conspiracy. Nobody waits. Just interesting. All right, Paul. I'm going to go tan. I'm going to go lay in my yard and have a beer. I'm going to go have a Montauk Summer, and I'm just laying there, and I'm going to enjoy my time.
A Montauk Summer?
Montauk Summer. Great beer.
Oh,
Summer ale. Well, Montauk is the company, which is also a place in Long Island.
Yep.
Summer is a season that we're in.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, please continue.
Yeah. And I'm going to oil myself up. I'm just going to get oiled up and just lay there. That's my afternoon.
I'm going to get oiled up like that saxophone player in The Lost Boys.
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
just go to town.
Exactly that. All right, guys. This was our bonus show. We'll see y'all next time. Take care. That was fun, Paul. I need to
Oh,
get a
boy.
screenshot of me. I'm super bloated right now. So I blew out my back, and the doctor gave me a steroid pack. That I
I'm sorry, a
don't want to.
steroid what?
A steroid pack.
Pack. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it prevents the inflammation, right? It pulls back on the
Mhm.
inflammation. And I don't want to take this thing because it bloats you up. And I have people to see on the 4th of July. And God forbid, I'm bloated.
Wow.
So I'm suffering right now for my vanity. Wonderful. All right, guys. That's it for this week. We'll see y'all next time. I got to take a photo. I got to get Suncast to edit this. He's going to post it. And bye-bye.
Bye.
And now, thank you.